What's up, everybody? We are back, the Fantasy Philosophers. I'm glad to be back. I took a little bit of a hiatus, had a lot of life things going on, but hey, man, football never stops. Football's here to bring us together. So I'm back. I'm happy to be back,
We're
and
happy to have you back.
appreciate it. Appreciate it. I want to thank everyone who stepped in and maybe made an appearance while I was out. You guys are the bomb. Who's that? That was Zach. I think stepped in.
Zach
Yeah,
stepped
thank you, Zach.
in. We had another person step in, but unfortunately had some technical difficulties, so that's still in the works. But either way, they still stepped up to help out. So shout out to Frank, of course. But glad to have you back,
Yeah,
man. It was
appreciate it,
it was
Frank.
different, it was different. I still enjoyed it, but
Yeah,
it just seems more natural and what I'm used to as far as you and I getting at it. So,
yeah, I
ready to get
appreciate it,
back
man.
to business and hopefully help everyone out there make a nice push with their playoff
It's
run and
playoff time.
ideally take home the ship.
Yeah, and I promise I've still been watching football. I've still been following right along. Still been setting all my lineups mostly. I let Chris Carson slip into one last week and he didn't play, but yeah, I've been keeping up. I promise. So I'm not out here just making stuff up. Haven't been watching football. I'm right there. But today we're going to talk about some buys and some sells as we make our way towards this playoff push, right? So a lot of leagues have trade deadlines and we should be right up against them. Hopefully, your deadlines haven't passed. But we're going to talk about some guys to target and maybe sell away, ship away to this playoff push. And this is mostly going to be based on their playoff schedule, right? So at this point in the season, we've got the data. We know what defenses are good matchups. And that's what we're going to target here. So we'll jump right into it. And I know Patrick, you're gonna like this because this is one of your guys.
It is. It
We're gonna talk
is.
about some buy candidates, and at the top of my list is actually Mr. Jarvis Landry. And real quick, I'll give you some thoughts on why I think we should be targeting Landry. Uh, he's probably really cheap right now, right? Most people,
As
he
cheap
hasn't
as
had the
he'll
greatest
ever
season.
be. I mean, he'll never be cheaper.
Yeah, I mean he's Mr. Disrespected normally anyway, so you're that discount's baked in. But he hasn't had the best season, and the last two games the Browns have played in just absolutely atrocious weather. We're talking monsoons, gale
Yeah.
force winds. Offense has been hard to come by, and it wasn't just the Browns that struggled; they did both teams. But in those last two games, Odell Beckham is hurt, so Landry's the main receiver. In those last two games, he had, I believe, a 21% and a 45% target share. So he's averaging about 35% of the total target share. That's great because in weeks 15 and 16, now granted, you got to get past week 14 first, but weeks 15 and 16, he's got both the New York teams. He's got the Jets and the Giants. And if those aren't some plus prime matchups, I don't know what is. So if you need some receiver help, I think Jarvis Landry is a guy that you should be targeting, and especially because I think you can get him on the cheap. Throw in a couple bench players with some upside. Maybe you can bamboozle one of your league mates into trading you a strong playoff performer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like you said it from the beginning, I've always been a big time Landry fan. It's just strange. Like this is the one and only year where health has been an issue. Um, as far as I'm aware, still has yet to miss a game in his career. So very commendable, needless to say. But with Odell Beckham Jr. going down, Landry continuing to get closer to 100% as the season progresses. And then, like you mentioned, the previous two games, I mean, the weather alone, no one was going to put up big numbers. So you could get him, you could pull a robbery basically. You could pull a robbery, but do it right now. because the rest of the way, if they're not running the ball, they're going to be passing it to Landry. And as you probably, most of y'all should remember back in Landry's early days and as recent as last year, as a matter of fact, reception monster, has hands, reliable, gets open. He's just someone that plays hard and plays with passion. So, he's going to put it all out there. And those are the type of players that I want. So great call. It's kind of ironic that I'm such a big fan of his. And as I was compiling my list, his name just did not come to mind. I don't know why. But then when you brought it up, I was like, come on. But yeah, Landry, I'm all with you on that one for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I think he could be a steal. For
Oh,
sure.
yeah. I mean, realistically, like, what would you have to give up to get him? I mean,
I was just thinking, maybe if you're already set at running back, you're offering something like Jordan Wilkins or Salvan Ahmed. I think that people are, after the last two games and the way the season started for Landry, I think people are going to be quick to ship him to you for any kind of perceived value. So I really think you get away with some robbery here. I don't think Wilkins or Ahmed have the potential to win you weeks and leagues like Landry does based on matchups and usage. Where are you going to
agreed.
get someone who's getting 30% of the target share for a running back you picked up off the waiver? Like he's the only one.
Agreed. And it may be a situation where, you know, the approach that you take is to try to get Landry plus another player. And I'm thinking this because the owner of Landry is probably thinking, why in the world does this guy want
Why?
Landry? So if he doesn't go for the other player, then maybe he'll just practically give you Landry for, I mean, I don't know, maybe he had Kittle and tight end is just a complete wasteland. And maybe you have two guys that at least have a chance to score a touchdown every week. I don't know, something like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm all about it. I would go grab Landry now while you can. Great call. Great call. I
Yeah.
love it. So buys for me, and I've really turned the corner on this guy because I really bashed him last year. But he's had quite the season, somewhat low key, but quite the season indeed. And that is David Montgomery. Now I know that he did miss the most recent game with the concussion. They have their bye this week. I'm very confident he'll be ready to return. And ever since Tariq Cohen went down with that torn ACL, I mean, we're seeing Montgomery do things that most people just frankly didn't think he was capable of doing when it comes to pass work, you know?
Mhm.
Another thing about David Montgomery, although the Bears offensive line has consistently week in and week out been rated amongst the league's worst, this guy is among the league's best in evading tackles and breaking tackles. I mean, this guy's literally getting hit like half a yard after he gets the ball, and he's still towards the top of the league in those categories. I mean, that tells you something. Let me pull him up here real quick because I really want everyone to hear a few stats. Because when I looked at this, I had to rub my eyes, slap my face a few times because I thought I was dreaming. I was like, this isn't possible, but apparently it is. So listen to this. In this year, amongst all running backs, David Montgomery has the 6th most receptions out of all running backs in the league.
What?
Number
Get out of town.
6. Number 6. Beyond that, excuse me. Number 6 in targets. My apologies.
I mean,
Receptions.
that's still shocking.
Yeah, receptions number 8, so still right there. Number 11 receiving yards. I mean, I can go on and on and on. There's lots of great statistics here to talk about. Evaded tackles, number 9. And again, look at the line he has blocking for him. That's amazing. So all these, I just feel like week in and week out, I always hear people talk about how terrible this guy is. And then looking at what he's done, it's like, what is everyone talking about? I mean, he's not, the best running back in the league, not even close, but a solid RB2 that I would feel confident playing the rest of the way. And if you look at his upcoming schedule after his bye this week, I mean,
that's the kicker.
The teams he plays the rest of the way are among the league's worst at stopping the run.
Absolutely.
So things are setting up quite nicely for him. Yeah, I won't bore y'all with any more stats. But again, just hearing David Montgomery being ranked top 10 at the running back position in both targets and receptions, along with evading tackles and breaking tackles. I mean, you put all that together, we might very well have a star in the making. It just is so low key. Everyone just thinks the Bears suck. And I'll admit, I don't think they're as good as their record shows, but he is having quite the breakout this year. And good for him. Good for him. Because he took a lot of hate from a lot of people coming into the season. So, I would grab him, if you're confident that you can be okay with him without him this week while he's on the bye, and then have him that the rest of the way where he's playing these teams that just are terrible stopping the run, I'd go get him. It's as if no one realizes. I think last I checked, he's like the 14th or 15th running back in PPR. And it's like no one even notices. So David Montgomery, shocker, but go get him.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with you on this one. Real quick before I say what I'm gonna. That's a great sound.
Oh, that is. I went to the store right before we hopped on, walked in, grabbed something to, something ice cold to sip on. Realized I didn't have my wallet. But I'm putting the people first. I wanted to make sure I was here on time. So I said, you know what? That can wait. Got more important things to do. Let's help everybody win this championship. So, well, you better believe afterwards I'm going to make a quick trip.
Yes, sir. We wouldn't want to deny that. But David Montgomery, man, let's just talk about his schedule real quick. So after the bye, he's got the Packers, the Lions, the Texans, the Bears, right? Sorry, the Bears.
He's on the Bears. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. The Vikings, sorry. So Packers, Lions, Texans, Vikings. All of those are bottom tier defenses, especially when you consider their run defense. I know the Packers are giving up 2 rushing touchdowns a game, I believe. I don't even want to get into the Texans. We'll talk about a lost season on many fronts for my franchise, but that's neither here nor there. David Montgomery should feast against my hapless Texans. He should feast against all of these guys, especially the way that Chicago wants to play football. They've got a great defense. that prohibits other teams from scoring. So if they can play, grind it out, run the clock management football, that's David Montgomery's game. And who's behind David Montgomery? Cordero Patterson, who we're recording Tuesday, and last night he looked good.
Yeah, he did. I agree. He looked to have a little pep in his step, you know,
I,
because he had a
I,
couple moments early in his career where it's like, wow, this guy might be something, and then a whole lot of nothing. But he looked quite good. But then again, he should be very, very well rested at this point, you know.
Well, he
So
was definitely running hard.
yeah.
And it does make me wish that we had seen him more in a hybrid running back type of role, maybe more like I feel like Cordero Patterson is Antonio Gibson before we knew Antonio Gibson was ever going to be a thing. Just didn't get used right. That's neither here nor there. But you know what
That's
what
what
I'm
it
really
boils
saying is there's
down
nobody
to.
behind him.
That's what it boils down to, though. I mean, you've got to use players correctly, and Cordell Patterson is a great example of a player that had a hell of a skill set and virtually just got regulated to being a return guy, and that was it.
And now look in the twilight
Why?
of his
I have
career, we're
no
seeing
idea, but
yeah, we're seeing what could have been, you know,
yeah.
if only this had happened earlier. But my point being is that's who's next in line behind David Montgomery. And then after that, they did just sign Lamar Miller. But we do this every time Lamar Miller gets signed. We get excited. He's going to get touches, and then he disappoints us. I'm not on the Lamar Miller train. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole unless Montgomery or Patterson end up, you know, having to miss significant time. Uh, but as far as Montgomery, like he's just the unsexy pick, you know. He was the unsexy pick in the offseason. We always knew he was gonna get the volume, right? That was the narrative. Like, oh, David Montgomery, he's gonna be a solid RB2, Mr. Unsexy, because we knew he was in line for 230 plus touches, and that's holding true. And as long as he's in there to play, I think he's got a great floor with a fantastic looking upside against these low tier defenses. So I am in total agreement with you on David Montgomery. And I think, at least as far as acquiring a running back goes, this is going to be another one of those guys you might be able to get, I'm going to put it in quotes, on the cheap, because it's never cheap to acquire a running back. But
well, I mean,
as far as running backs go,
injured
this is probably
and
one of
he's
the
not
cheaper.
even playing this
and
week,
he's on a bye.
So
the perfect storm.
Go get him. Get him.
100%.
Last stat, I promise. Last stat.
Okay.
I just can't believe it. I just can't believe it. So, David Montgomery, out of all the running backs in the NFL, he has run the third most pass routes this season.
That's incredible. Maybe though it's because they don't really have anyone behind him, and I mean, they're on a 4-game losing streak. Their offense has looked bad, but I really think going up against these bottom tier defenses, they're not going to look fantastic.
But the thing for me is, everyone looked at him as a between the 20s runner, and then so it's like Tariq Cohen goes in the game, the defense kind of knows how to adjust. Well, David Montgomery has showcased quite damn good that he is a very capable receiver himself. So now that we know he can not only break tackles, evade tackles, but also be solid in the pass game, defenses, they're not going to know what to expect. I mean, that's the type of running back that you want. So I can't emphasize it enough. Sure. He's just somehow, some way remaining under the radar. Now's your chance. Go get him.
Definitely. Yeah, good discussion on Mr. Montgomery there. Looking at another buy we've got here, I'm going to talk about someone we just referenced. I feel like it's a good segue. Mr. Antonio Gibson for the Washington football team. I don't know about you, but every time I see them abbreviated, the WFT, my brain automatically autocorrects it to WTF every time, and I have to do double take every single time. I don't know if I'll
Hey,
ever get used to it.
at
I'm
this
sure once I do, they'll
point,
change it.
maybe they should just go with that because it's better than
Uh,
the Washington football team. Any news on a new name? Like, I would have thought that we would have
no,
heard
I haven't.
something by now. Because I mean, it's been quite some
They might as
time.
well just keep it this way now. I mean,
Yeah, why
it
not?
is what it is.
Why not?
Um,
But yeah, good call on
but
Gibson for sure.
Antonio Gibson, um, this is I'm a little touch and go on this one, right? Because his schedule isn't the greatest. We got the Steelers, the 49ers, and the Seahawks, right? But what's what's fantastic about Gibson is his usage is trending up. Right, he got 2 touchdowns this past week. Everyone was griping at the beginning of the game because I think it was McKissick stole a touchdown or a touchdown look from Gibson, but he started getting later in the game. He got some looks, he got some touches, and he made the most of it. And I think that's something that we're going to start seeing moving forward. They've really eased him into the role when you look at it. As the season has progressed, he's seen more and more and more of the work, especially on the ground. Now, it would be great to see him get a little more uptick in some passing down work. JD McKissick seems to have that mostly locked down, though. What did he have, like 12 targets in the first half from Captain Check Down
Yeah.
Alex Smith this past week?
Yeah, and good for
But
JD
the upside, man.
McKissick, but that's one of the biggest reasons. Again, this is another guy that's just low key putting in work. I mean, I didn't realize this, but in full PPR, Antonio Gibson is the number 14 overall running back. And standard, if anyone out there actually still plays that, he's number 11. I did not realize, I would have guessed like 20 to 24 ish, but he's a top 15 guy.
Yeah.
And
And
honestly, I think the whole McKissick thing, my personal opinion, I think, especially now with Alex Smith in at quarterback, you're going to trust McKissick with his blocking assignments from that position before the rookie Antonio Gibson.
makes sense.
But even with that, I don't think anyone would argue that Antonio Gibson is a very good receiving running back. So it's only a matter of time. He looks good running the ball. It's a rebuilding team. But again, just another guy that just is just sliding under the radar. And for some reason, people are like, yeah, he's okay. But, well, he's a number 14 in PPR. I mean, I'll take that. What do you want for him?
Yeah. And I'll say this: if you have a league that will let you trade right up until the playoffs, fantastic. First of all, mostly though, the point I want to make is you have to do it now. Because if you're thinking, oh, he got 2 touchdowns, maybe that was a fluke, whatever. He plays the Bengals and the Cowboys next. So if you're waiting to see, it's too late. It's too late because the price is going to skyrocket and he's going to become unattainable. If you have if he is on the team of a savvy manager, he might already be unattainable, to be quite honest. If someone's been paying attention, you might not be able to get him already. But I think it's worth a shot because his usage is trending up and just his upside. If you watch his film from Memphis, man, the dude can break a play from anywhere on the field. We saw Rojo with a 98-yard touchdown this week. Of course, I had to bring that up.
Yeah, that was awesome. I'm not gonna lie. When he fumbled,
just saying.
I thought he was done for the season. just because of Arians. I
Me
was
too, man.
like, I felt so bad for him. I was like, this guy is literally getting thrown on the practice squad or released. Poor guy. Nope.
Yeah,
Arians, I guess you
but
finally learned. Congrats, brother. Real
but
quick,
we
before I
still
forget,
do it, and
real quick, regarding Antonio
yeah,
Gibson, and this is interesting because as we mentioned, J.D. McKissick, ever since Alex Smith took over anyway, is being heavily involved in the pass game. Now, I will say some of it he is lining up in the slot as an actual receiver. So take what I'm about to say with a bit of a grain of salt, but it is still noteworthy. So his next, the what? Who I almost said it. Washington football team, their next 3 games: Cincinnati Bengals, Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh Steelers. Those 3 teams are among the best in the league as far as fewest points to receiving running backs. And as
interesting.
of late, might have something to do with the Bush injury, but the Steelers here lately, they've been giving up some chunk plays in the run game. It's kind of gone unnoticed just because of their offense and the fact that they're undefeated,
Keep winning.
but go get Gibson now while you can.
Yeah, and my point was just that look, we saw Ronald Jones break off a 98-yard touchdown. And he's not known for being the most athletically gifted person in the world. Antonio Gibson is a freak athlete. So literally anytime he touches the ball, hold your breath because it might be going to the house. Get Antonio Gibson.
True that.
So Patrick, we can do the last buy we have here. We have a little bit of time, but we just have to promise to be quick so we can get to a bunch of these cells.
Okay. We'll make it real quick. It's gonna be tough for most, if not everyone, to buy into this one, but it's Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper was having by far the most consistent season of his career until my favorite player in the world, Dak, went down with the injury. He had a nice bounce back game with Garrett Gilbert under center. Nothing crazy, but just that sign of life. I just think that now that they've actually had time to kind of regroup as an offense, because it's obviously completely different without Dak. Amari Cooper is going to be the number 1 receiver in that offense the rest of the way. You don't have to be a stud quarterback to complete a pass to an open receiver. He has a couple of tough matchups, but to be very honest, when he's healthy, Amari Cooper is one of the best route runners in the league. And again, just seeing the consistency that he's finally shown. I mean, and I've seen in certain leagues people trade him away for just like trash, like someone that no one's ever heard of has one big game, like that Guyton guy from the Chargers, and then I see Amari Cooper for Guyton, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So if you got someone like that in your league that just is completely out and you can snag them for a very cheap price, I would roll the dice on them. That's just me, not having Dak hurts. Yes, it's a gamble, but seeing how low his value has dropped, I would grab him. I would. What are your thoughts?
I find this one interesting because he does have an all right schedule. He's got the Vikings this week, um, and then we got Washington, Baltimore, the Bengals, the Niners,
Well,
and then championship week is the Eagles.
here's the thing: Washington, Collins, done, and I hate seeing that
Hmm.
ruptured Achilles. We just saw the Patriots put in work on Baltimore. I mean, Jacoby Myers had a solid game against them, so I don't see why Amari can't. Um,
Yeah,
Nothing about
I
Cincinnati scares me at all. I think he has a good schedule.
my biggest concern, yeah, my biggest concern is just the quarterback play. Like, if you can tell me that I'm gonna get what we saw out of Garrett Gilbert every week, then yeah, I'll throw some shekels and see if I can buy low on Amari Cooper. But Dalton's slated to play again, and if it's gonna be the Dalton that we saw in the previous two games, I don't want any part of it, man. Like, not only was it bad for Amari Cooper, it's bad for football, man. Those games were terrible, awful to watch. I'm
Yeah.
a sadist, so I watched them anyway, but um, they were bad, man. Dalton looked washed, terrible, like he didn't even know how to play quarterback anymore. Um, so if that's what we're getting, I definitely don't want it. Uh, and I think I would only buy Cooper if I was confident we were going to get the product that we saw the last time they played when Garrett Gilbert was quarterback. And I don't think I'm confident in that. So for me, I'm trying to get Amari Cooper. But I can see based on the schedule where that could be appealing, and it's definitely one of those high risk, high reward plays, you know.
Exactly. And the final 2 points, and then we can move on to the cells. Um, First things first, Dallas's defense is terrible, arguably the worst in the league. Garbage time points are worth just as much. Straight up. Period.
Hey, Blake Bortles won people championships on garbage time
Yes.
a couple years
Yes, thank
ago.
you. Beyond that, their offensive line, low key, is starting to get healthy. That's going to help some. So there's, both sides of that play in his favor. Cause I mean, even if he doesn't do well the first half, but then all of the second half, they're in like a quarters or even prevent type defense, and they're just hitting them for little 15, 20-yard gains, especially in a PPR league.
PPR.
Looking at a PPR league that I have him in, he has scored at least, and this uses decimals, 12 and a half or more points in every game except two.
Oh, it's a solid floor for sure, especially if you're, again, this isn't another one of those, like, if you're wide receiver needy and you don't have much to spend, you might be able to get him for cheap. And if you can count on 12 and a half points a week, that's that's
And
not
if
too
anyone
bad.
out there is thinking, well, that's because he's the only wide receiver that scores touchdowns for them, he only has 2 touchdowns on the year.
Ah, man.
And he is still, as of today, the number 15 wide receiver in PPR.
It's pretty good with only 2 touchdowns, man.
Yeah,
It's pretty
very
solid.
good.
That
So,
means that means he's catching and getting yards.
I don't blame people if they don't go for it, but me, how cheap you can get them, I would roll the dice. I would roll the dice. I play to win. You got to gamble a little bit. It might not work out, but if it does, that could win it. That could win it for you.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Definitely, man.
Yeah, good discussion. Let's go ahead and shift over to the players that we're looking to sell as we approach the playoffs, and I'll let you kick it off, Dustin. Who you got up first?
I'm glad you let me kick it off because if you know me, this is my guy. I've been on Mr. James Robinson since like May.
Seemed like you had him
Got him
in
everywhere.
every league that we're in together. I was like, does he have him in every league? My goodness.
Well, shout out to JJ Zacharyson at Late Round QB on Twitter. He was talking about draft profiles on some podcast back in like April, and he threw this in as like a bonus and was just talking about his college profile and all the production and everything that he'd seen. He's like, the guy's probably going to go undrafted, but I'm taking a flyer. I was like, well, hell, why not?
Gamble
And wow,
flyer.
talk about yeah, probably one of the best flyers I've ever taken. And I got him for like $5 after the rookie draft in most places, so that was pretty sweet. But he's one of my top sell candidates. In fact, in our main dynasty league, Patrick, I shipped him off to Frank like two weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah, and
Um,
and then in the other one, I saw you sent him to our boy Zach, and I knew what you were doing. It was a smart move because, well, I'll let you explain why.
yeah, I mean, he kind of has the playoff schedule from hell. It's not great. We're talking, so starting this week, the schedule is not looking all that great. We're talking Steelers this week, Browns the following week. Starting in week 14, where the playoffs are, we've got the Titans, the Ravens, and the Bears.
Oh
So yeah, the
man.
Titans might be an all right matchup, but the Ravens, the Bears, I don't like that, especially with. I mean, is Minshew coming back? And if he is it any better than Jake Luton, whatever his name is, Jake Luton? I don't think so. I think they're in the market for a quarterback. As much as fun as Minshew Mania was, I think they're in the market for a quarterback. And Chris Thompson's back. I don't know if you noticed, but since Chris Thompson
Yep.
has come back, James Robinson has not been catching as many passes as he was earlier in the season. And without that passing production against these tough run defenses, I don't see it being pretty. I love the guy. I love the talent. History, this is a little bit of a dynasty thing, but history tells us that undrafted free agents, UDFA's, they're expendable, and organizations don't have any tie to them, any reason to pay them. So even if he keeps playing like this, was he on a 1 year, 2 year contract? I'm not confident the Jags re-sign him. I mean, unfortunately, that's the way the running back
Yeah.
position goes. Again, that's more of a dynasty take. But for redraft, I don't like the schedule. The quarterback
No.
situation is scary, and Chris Thompson's back. So for me, that all
Agreed.
screams sell, sell, sell on James Robinson.
I mean, their next game against Pittsburgh, I can't imagine them being in contention for maybe beyond the first 4 minutes of the game. And
Oh, I can't wait to see what the line is on this one. Pittsburgh
and
probably
I
by
don't mean
17
to
or something.
offend anyone out there that's a Jaguars fan. I'm just keeping it real because you got DJ Shark, but he's drawing all the coverage. Robinson has had a damn good season. I'll give him that. But Pittsburgh with that offense and defense, even though they lost one of their best defensive players, they're going to run over Jacksonville. They're going to run over them. Cleveland, great run defense. He could do well at Minnesota and Tennessee, but then we're right back at Baltimore and then against Chicago, and we saw Chicago make Dalvin Cook just look average. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to see anything
And
else. If you have them
one
and
other
you
thing,
go for it.
yeah, I just want to add, you were talking about, like, I know it's really hard for people to let go of the production. Like, if you've owned James Robinson on a team this year, he's killed it for you and he was next to free. So I know it's tough to let this go. But here's the thing. He's played 10 games, right? Uh, in those 10 games, he has played bottom five run defenses. Half of his matchups have come against the bottom five run defenses in the league. And if you look at the average run defensive rating of all 10 games, he's on average playing the 20th best run defense. Fantastic for your regular season, but that is all about to change as he's now about to go up against top 10 run defenses basically for the rest of the season. So we gotta look ahead and not back and let ourselves go from the past production. I know it's hard because he's been killing it for us.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just one of those things where you have to understand that, yeah, it might not feel good giving him away, but you're going to get something in return. Like there's going to be someone in your league that looks and sees, holy crap, this guy is the fourth best running back in PPR. Whoa. Yeah, I'm going to accept. And then they hit this death row of just dominant run stopping defenses, and things are going to change rather quickly, in my opinion. I hope he proves us wrong, to be honest. That would be amazing, but I'm not buying that.
Yeah, it'd be bittersweet
It
because I shipped him off it from almost everywhere I've got
I
him.
don't
But
blame. I saw you doing it, and I was like, yeah, Dustin is as smart as I thought he is, because I would have done the same thing. You sold him at the perfect time.
yeah, and
Everyone's about to find
I
out.
started a little early.
Well,
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
why I started
better to
early.
get it done, while you can, because we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, but I would not be confident.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and I mean, especially where I was rebuilding and had him, get him for a first and a third, a first plus, like I'll take it. I'll do it. So
yep,
because I wasn't even coming close to competing in some of those leagues I sold him. So
there you go. There you go. Um, so one of my sells, and people probably think I just hate this guy, and maybe I do. I don't know, but it's Will Fuller. He's had a tremendous season. I completely trashed the guy in the offseason and thought everyone was out of their damn minds for taking him in the 7th round. And, I look like the fool up to this point, at least. The thing with Will, I feel like this is the highest his value will ever be. The fact that I think he's only missed one game this season.
did he miss the game?
Well,
I thought he was.
he was on the field. They just didn't use him. Yeah, 60-something% of snaps, but no targets, no catches, unless that's a mess up on sleeper. I don't know. But Brandon Cooks emerging. Deshaun Watson just tends to look for those tight ends. So, I mean, yeah, Will Fuller could use his speed and get wide open for a touchdown. Yeah, that's always there. But I think selling him now would be wise because he has some tough matchups coming up in the playoffs. Let's see. So
Indy
assuming
twice.
everyone's doing what they should be doing and having their playoffs weeks 14 through 16, he goes up against the Colts, at the Bears,
Chicago,
and at the
Indy.
Colts.
Yeah.
Two of the better defenses in the league. Again, he could make me look like a fool. Maybe I am. I don't know what it is. I just don't trust the guy. And the fact that he's stayed healthy and produced as he has up to this point really surprises me. I obviously don't own him anywhere, but everyone knew that. If I did, because I mean, you can get a solid return for him. That's the thing. Again, you're not just giving him away. You're gonna find someone that you feel is relatively close and just has a better schedule. Because, I mean, again, Brandon Cooks wasn't doing much early on, but as of late, his targets have crept up. He's starting to look like the Brandon Cooks of old. So it's kind of like if Will Fuller doesn't have one long touchdown reception, you're probably going to be disappointed. And when it comes to those playoff matchups against the Colts, Bears, then Colts again, good luck, man. That's rough. That is rough.
Yeah. Um, with Will Fuller, what's he's been buoyed by touchdowns. So he has scored a touchdown every single week since week 3. Week 10 last week was the first week since week 3 he hasn't scored a touchdown. But even with scoring touchdowns, he's only scoring like, 13, 12, 15 points. So, like half of his production is coming from touchdowns. And yes, I mean, I understand touchdowns count, but, Will Fuller's not that type of person that we think of as like a touchdown machine in the typical sense. Yeah, he can be, but typically it's on these big breakaway plays. He still has that ability. We haven't seen it as much this season. So, as far as the Brandon Cooks thing goes, what happened was Bill O'Brien got fired, and someone was like, "Oh, damn, we have this other guy that we brought in, and we should probably use." And his target share and usage rate just started, going through the roof, and then he started, exploding
Yeah, I mean,
a little bit. I
he
think he had
gained
like a
some confidence
26-point
back.
game
I
at one point.
mean, yeah, a player like that, you got to get him involved, and he finally is, and he appears to be back to full form, what he was prior to that last season with the Rams, where although he missed, I think only 2 games, was hurt throughout the season. Um, I just think right now is the time to sell high on Will Fuller. Go with what you feel. He's proven me wrong up to this point. I never would have dreamed that I would see him sitting here as a top 15 PPR receiver this deep into the season. And that's just a personal thing for me. So again,
Yeah, and
maybe I'm just a complete idiot, but I would sell him now because I just don't see his value being this high ever again.
Yeah, and I'll say that I see this as more of like a 1A, 1B type of situation as far as Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks. So, if I would prefer to have someone who's more of like an alpha. Now, granted, you probably didn't draft either one of those guys to be your alpha number 1 receiver. So I could also see, hey man, I drafted Will Fuller to be my wide receiver 3 and he's wide receiver 14 on the year, man. No way I'm selling. I could see both sides of the argument, but I tend to agree with you. I don't think the touchdowns are going to remain as consistent as they have been. And so for that reason, I'd be looking to ship him off based on that prior production.
Yep. Hey, but Will, I hope you prove me wrong. I hope you do, same. But I'm betting against you. We'll see what happens.
Same. That's a good segue into my my next sell candidate. We're talking about kind of 1A, 1B. This person's a sell candidate for me because I think they could even potentially be a 1C on their team, and that's Mike Evans. So I know he had a big week this past week, and that makes this actually the perfect time to try and get some good return for him. He's been buoyed by touchdowns as well. He's got some stat lines this year where, it's like 4 catches for 4 yards and 2 touchdowns. And I mean, heck, that saves the fantasy day. But again, that touchdown type of stuff isn't always sustainable. And what concerns me is that before Antonio Brown got there, Mike Evans basically took a backseat to Chris Godwin anytime the two of them were healthy and playing together. So Mike Evans saw like a 10 to 12% target share decrease anytime Chris Godwin was healthy and playing. And he wasn't catching the touchdowns like that, right? I think he had a couple games that Godwin was playing where he actually had the stat line I mentioned, a couple catches, couple yards, couple touchdowns. And that saved his day, which otherwise, would have been basically a goose egg. And that stuff hurts. Now Antonio Brown is there, and it seems like whether it's Arians or Brady, whoever, they're trying to feed that man the ball. And I don't think they're going to stop. So I think we've seen that Godwin is safe. Godwin's going to have a floor. If he scores a touchdown, awesome. It's a boom week. but I just think that, typically we talk about a backfield by committee and it's a headache. I kind of see that being this wide receiving core. This is not Peyton Manning and the Colts when they had Reggie Wayne, um, Marvin Harrison, and Brandon Stokely. This is not that. Maybe it turns into that, but they don't have the best schedule. And I just think it's going to be a headache and a guessing game trying to figure out who eats each week. I think Godwin's your safe floor. Evans and Brown are going to be boom bust for you. And I think this is the perfect time to sell him because he just went off for a big week this week. I think it was 2 touchdowns. Um, you can get a good return for him right now.
I agree.
If I've got him, which unfortunately I don't anywhere, I'm shipping him if I can.
And I would imagine there's at least one person in your league that still believes in Evans. I mean, the guy's had I don't know how many consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. I mean, the name alone gets attention. Especially seeing Tom Brady bounce back from that terrible game he had against the Saints to just going ham this past week. You could get something decent for Mike Evans. I think Chris Godwin all around has a better skill set as a wide receiver. I mean, yes, Mike Evans has the size, of course. But Chris Godwin, man, when he's healthy, to me, that guy is one of the best in the league. His route running is incredible. I mean, his hand, I feel like anytime the ball is relatively catchable, he catches it. He's just one of those players. And then we got Antonio Brown, who's BFF with TB12. And then Gronk's there as well. Are we talking like 4th in the pecking order at this point? I don't know. I don't know where we're at, if you can get a decent return for him, I'd sell him. Yeah, I just don't trust him. I don't trust him at all.
And I want to clarify one thing. I said, they don't have the greatest schedule. What I meant by that was I don't think they have the greatest schedule for Mike Evans to score a ton of points.
Right.
Because in the playoffs, they get like the Vikings, the Falcons, and the Lions. And yes, you might think like, oh, those are terrible defenses. But as we've both discussed, there's a lot of people who could score touchdowns. And if they go up big on these teams, it's going to be the Rojo and Fournette show.
Yeah. And, even though you wouldn't know it by looking at his stats, he's more or less used just as a deep threat to stretch the field and draw coverage away from other players from what I've seen. I mean, he'll run some other routes, here and there, but it just seems like overall that's what he's used as. And if they're going to be up big, I mean, Tom Brady is a smart guy. If he needs to, sure, he'll air it out to Evans, but if they're up and winning and then he has Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Gronk, these other guys that are just solid possession receivers to just keep moving the chains and let the clock continue to tick, I see Evans being the odd man out, unfortunately. I've been a fan of his for the longest. I just calling it how I see it. That's all you can do.
Yep. Yeah. He's most weeks he's going to be what I like to call an alliteration wide receiver. And what I mean by that is it's like two catches for 27 yards, 6 catches for 64 yards, and maybe he'll score a touchdown. And then every now and then he'll have some weeks like he did last week where it's 11 for 77 and a touchdown, But good luck predicting that.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. All right, y'all. A lot of people will not like this one, but you'll see what I'm talking about very, very soon. My next sell is Dalvin Cook. Yes, you heard me correctly. Dalvin Cook. So we saw the Chicago Bears make him look average the other night. He didn't do bad. He was average. Looking at the 3 weeks of fantasy playoffs at Tampa Bay, who I believe up until last week or maybe the week before had the number one rushing defense in the league. Ironically, they were just recently surpassed by the New Orleans Saints, who Dalvin would be facing in week 16 of the championship. And then mixed right there in the middle, he has to face the Chicago Bears once again.
This is like James Robinson level crappy.
I get it. I mean, those 2 games that he had where he just exploded, that was phenomenal. Those aren't the types of teams that he's going to be playing when it matters most. Beyond that, and again, this is a personal thing, the injuries from the other night, it was like, it looked pretty clear what happened. It looked like he took a shot to his manhood, and it was like everyone just held their breath, like, oh my God, it happened again. And I'm thinking, like, damn, like the dude gets hit in the family jewels and everyone's assuming it's the knee again. I just think it would be a very clever move to trade him now, because obviously if someone wants him, they know they're going to have to send you a haul. They may not even be thinking about those 3 weeks of playoffs yet. They just want to get to the playoffs. Be smarter than them.
Chasing points.
Be smarter than them. I mean, sure, he has Dallas this week, so he'll probably put a 50 spot up. But at the end of the day, do you want to make the playoffs or do you want to win? That's what it comes down to. And I mean, props to him if he proves me wrong, but at Tampa Bay, Chicago, at New Orleans, I mean, and then you got Kirk Cousins at quarterback, who does not scare a single person. I would sell him now, get a nice hefty haul, and then ride off into the sunset with my championship trophy and watch the guy that accepted the trade for Dalvin Cook to probably hate him the rest of their lives. So, again, nothing against Dalvin Cook, great talent, but that is a murderer's row of run defenses that he has to go up against, and I'm not betting on him against those defenses, not at all.
Yeah, his fantasy playoff schedule sucks.
Terribly. It might be the worst for any running back in the league. It really
it's
might.
pretty bad on paper. You know what's interesting is as you were talking, I was thinking, like, man, someone who's making a playoff push is probably going to have a hard time giving you a haul for Dalvin Cook. But what if you like float something out to the Derrick Henry guy, the guy who owns Derrick Henry, right? Because Derrick Henry didn't have the best week this week, and Derrick Henry's schedule is choice, and Derrick Henry hasn't been exploding like Dalvin has. So I'd probably take Derrick Henry straight up. I mean, I'd probably see if I could get a little bit more, but if it came down to it, I don't typically like to trade like running back for running back. But
yeah, if you do it right now, maybe like a Dalvin for Derrick Henry and Brandon Ayuk, something like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's
if you
perfect,
haven't seen Derrick Henry's playoff schedule, I'll let you enjoy the moment. I won't even ruin it unless Dustin wants to. But I mean, it doesn't get any
I have
better.
it pulled
It just
up.
doesn't. It
It's
doesn't.
choice.
Yeah, go ahead and read it off. Just do it, because I mean, it is like,
Yeah. All right.
it just. How many have words? It's excellent. Excellent.
All right. So let's see. So it's the Jags, the Lions, and the Packers. All bottom tier run defenses.
Yep.
And we saw what James Robinson did to bottom tier run defenses. It's Derrick Henry season. So like, I don't know. That's just something that randomly popped into my head while you were talking. Yeah, winter is coming. Make sure you've got we'll call him the Ice King, King Henry, Ice King Henry. I think that's a really plausible trade that could actually happen.
Oh yeah. Especially after
Yeah.
Dalvin Cook goes off this week against Dallas. Like, just hold him,
Mhm.
let him put up 50 points against Dallas, and you're gonna probably have several people that want him.
Yeah, and you might not even have to like wait. He's had 2 huge weeks. He just played a great Bears run defense. Everyone at this point in the season knows that Dallas is a defense that we're targeting. If we're streaming anything or worried about matchups, Dallas, everyone knows Dallas is one to target. So, if your trade deadline is before the games end this week, use that as bargaining, as negotiation.
Yeah.
Look, he's gonna kill it against Dallas. You want him now. Let me send him. Give me Derrick Henry, because Derrick Henry plays the Ravens this weekend, so that's not a great matchup.
Kind of
And then he
opposite.
gets the Colts and Browns.
It's opposite for them. Like, Dalvin, the next couple of games are pretty cake. But then when it really matters, forget
It's
about
a gauntlet.
it. Derrick Henry, exact opposite. Next couple of games are going to be tough. But once you get into the playoffs, Derrick Henry is gonna go nuts. I just can't imagine any of those teams that he's facing weeks 14 through 16 stopping him, or even wanting to try to stop him for that matter. So
yeah, those are all gonna be outdoor games also. So,
even better.
Cold weather is Derrick Henry weather. So yeah, man. If you can stomach pulling off that trade and living with the fact that Derrick Henry's probably not going to get you 25 points, in the next 3 weeks, but in the playoff run, you're probably looking at a floor of about 20, or else you're severely disappointed. That's something that I would highly recommend, because Dalvin Cook's playoff schedule is boo-boo and Derrick Henry's is choice, and I really think that you could pull this trade off. And as far as like the top running backs go, like, you're not getting Kamara for Dalvin Cook. As far as the top running backs go, this would be a swap that I'd be willing to do. I'm not big on swapping just like player for player like that, but redraft
the lateral
playoff schedules
stuff,
like this,
it's just weird.
Yeah.
It's like, why? It's almost like you're just bored at that point.
Yeah, but this is strategery. This is 4D chess, and I really think you can pull the wool over someone's eyes on this one and pull off just like a masterpiece. So give it a shot. Let us know how it goes. I would be interested to see if anybody can pull something like this off, and what you came away with, and if it worked out too.
Same.
But man, that brings us to an hour. It flew by.
It always does. It's
probably
because
I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
feels good to be back.
Buys and sells. Yeah. It's definitely good to be back. I'm excited to see how the last part of this NFL season shakes out. There's a lot of teams, still in the playoff hunt, both in fantasy and real football. This is the best part of the football season. Snow starts falling,
Yep.
The weather gets colder. It's win or go home type of football. This is the best football of the year. So I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to get back on here and talk about it. What else you got, Patrick?
Just shout out to everyone that's shown us love. I think it's safe to say that, we don't have a big following, if a following at all for that matter. This is just something that Dustin and we do it anyway, and we enjoy doing it. So in the crazy times that this world is facing, where there's just nothing but negativity, and then we can just come here and just talk about sports. Dustin and I have been playing against each other in fantasy football for several years at this point. I mean, geez, we're probably in like 8 leagues at this point up against each other. But we just enjoy it. So for anyone out there watching, thank you sincerely. Thank you for just taking the time to watch. Give us your input. We're new to this. I mean, we have several videos out, but I mean, speaking for myself, this is very out of my element. So I anticipate that it'll get better and better. I do have some ideas that I plan on, once I discuss it with my partner Dustin, of course, hopefully incorporating it as we start to transition into 2021. But we just appreciate everyone that's shown us love, left comments, viewed anything at all. I mean, it means a lot. And like we always say, we're here for y'all. Let us know what you want to see. For anyone who's interested in joining us in a video, we're always open to welcoming guest co-hosts. You just got to reach out and, drop us a line and we'll work something out. Fantasy Philosopher will be back very, very soon. But until then, hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you want to see. There's not much time left. So if there's something that's you feel is a very important topic that needs to be discussed and you want to hear our input, hit us up in the comments and we'll get to work. Nothing but love, everyone. That's all I got. Dustin, anything else?
That's it, man. Excited to be back, and we'll get some more recordings done, and hopefully help some people win some championships.
You already know. Let's go get it. Game time, baby.